What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin price chart and the awesome price action that we've seen over here over the course of the last week. As many know, we've been following this since early April on what the expectations would be like for Bitcoin price action in the event that we were having an ABC correction. We followed it here on the YouTube channel. We followed it over there on Twitter. We now got down into the zone and boom, out and away we've gone. And last week, even taking out the height that was set back there in early April. This has been in line with expectations of what previous Bitcoin corrections have looked like. We've had two examples that we've been looking at for the last couple of months. And as is typical, we have the extremes on one end, where you have a group of people thinking we're going to $1 million in 90 days. And then you have the wrath of the SEC trying to shake everybody out of the market all at the same time, only for prices to reverse and shoot their way back up. So we'll talk about the current price action we're in right now, things that I'm seeing in here, whether we're going to be stalled out here for a little while or kind of gradually work our way up. Over here in the altcoin market, we've been looking for some signs to emerge in here that we could be pulling our way out of Wyckoff Spring. Still doesn't seem like we're completely out of there yet, and that accumulation is still taking place in a lot of these. However, on some, we are starting to see those signs, as we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks when it comes to Wyckoff accumulation, seeing that kind of creak, boom, break, only for prices to reverse. We've pointed to this on several different charts. And well, who really exhibited our sign of strength phase after a spring last week? None other than Bitcoin Cash coming in for absolutely perfect Wyckoff Spring, creek, break, sign of strength, now appearing to be working on last point of support phase. So not only will we look at Bitcoin's price action, things that have historically come after moves like we've seen last week, we'll also kind of talk about the Wyckoff accumulation that we're seeing and some of the breakouts we're seeing over there in the altcoin market. Of course, we'll talk here about the XRP price chart as it continues in this range that we're in right now. But one thing we know about this range is that this correction is equivalent to what we actually had back in 2015 through 2017. And the behavior down here has been very similar. What's so interesting about this range back here? Well, you know, kind of the things we've been talking about. Wyckoff accumulation, Wyckoff accumulation, Wyckoff accumulation. And that, even in here, this was Wyckoff accumulation, where we can see our selling climax, our secondary test, then our secondary test in phase B, creek, break for spring, and then finally, sign of strength, last point of support, blast out. And since we'll be talking about Bitcoin and its price action of what it's done after these types of historical moves, why not talk about XRP's price action and what it has done after these types of historical moves for Bitcoin as well? So we'll try to kind of paint a picture of everything going on right now in between Bitcoin and in between the altcoin market. If you're an avid watcher of this YouTube channel, undoubtedly you have noticed there have been far fewer videos over the course of the last couple of weeks on this channel. We've still continued to do markets in the morning every weekday, but I've heard you guys loud and clear saying, I miss the videos. And believe me, I have too. And it's not that I've stopped doing videos, it's that I'm super happy to announce that enrollment on bcbacker.com is open for an entirely new course with 40 plus new videos, over 11 hours of new content, and that this has been why there's been about half of the normal amount of videos on the YouTube channel. That this has been the big project I've been working on all year long, and I quietly opened it up yesterday, and I've already gotten a bunch of positive feedback, and I'm so grateful because this thing has been what I've worked on from the moment I've woken up till the moment I got off my computer at night, practically every day for the last couple of months. And it is officially open for enrollment over here on bcbacker.com. And I've tried to outline everything that comes in here with all these fresh new videos and all this content that you guys have requested, with over 40 videos focusing on a lot of the things that you guys find interest in and the things that I talk about on the YouTube channel. One of the things that always has been requested has been Elliott wave theory, the Wyckoff method of Wyckoff accumulation and distribution. We go into talking about the historical behavior of the crypto market, including 2021 in there. Were there any lessons that were learned through all of that? and then additional information that could have been helpful. So I'll dive into this later in the video and kind of run through this thing now that it is open, but I'm thrilled that over the course of this weekend, it has opened up. It is ready to rock, and you can check that out on bcbacker.com. Otherwise, let's dive on into Bitcoin. Obviously, a lot of people are going to pay attention to the news cycle and what happened last week, in which we had BlackRock file for a Bitcoin ETF. There was also a big follow-up to that with a bunch of other ETF filings. Then the SEC even approved a 2x leverage Bitcoin ETF. And all of this comes off the heels of the SEC practically making crypto seem like it's nothing but hucksters, scammers, and bad people. Then, the narrative shifts quite quickly, right? Now, my hypothesis has been that we were going to go into some type of cruel summer, which we went through. We went through all of April, all of May, deep into June. Boom, we pull out of here. This is relatively within the same time frame of how long these typically last down in here. This is also true for another correction we had, which was the top of Bitcoin back in 2021. We sort of hung out in this area for about a similar amount of time before we eventually broke our way out of there, and that these lasted very similar distribution, accumulations, and breakups. Now, everybody's going to argue what comes next, right? So there's two different scenarios that we see here, right? After this 2021 moment, what did we do? We went up and set a new high, which we've done. Then it turns over and crumbles on itself. And that was the end of that, right? But that hasn't been my hypothesis of the market. During all of this, I've talked about it, been optimistic for 2023, expecting an ABC correction, that this will mark a local top for a few months. But my grand hypothesis has been that we're working on something like this coming out of here. And that when we had this happen back in 2021, it was similar to kind of what we're seeing right now, in which there was like this big dramatic event that happened in the market. As we know, 2022 was full of dramatic events. Luna, UST, Three Arrows Capital, Celsius, BlockFi. It just kept crumbling. And then at the very end, it was kind of like our C19 moment. It was just slam. FTX collapsing. The market behavior was very similar after that moment, just like it was after C19. For those who don't know, down in here, in this moment in here, where Bitcoin crumbles down here to about $4,000 and then waddles sideways for months, everybody's screaming the same stuff they were screaming after FTX. 2022 and 2023's version has been, we're going to 10 to 12K. 2020's version was, we're going back to 3K or lower. But after a moment like this, we saw prices have the ability to rebound and eventually had a correction after really a few waves to the upside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we had kind of a deeper correction, and this one lasted, and this one instilled fear in the market. And I've talked a lot about that. You see people screaming for manipulation. You see people screaming that we're going to go lower. What do we get, right? We get the same kind of stuff. We get the SEC showing up to just instill utter fear in the market. We get the spring phase of accumulation on a lot of these altcoins happening in there. And that this phase is similar to like coming off of our lows. Even the timing of it just so happens to be aligned for that style of a correction, the ones that we've been looking at, to occur right in here after working 3 waves back to the upside. So my hypothesis has been, yep, we're going to have a rough April, May, June, a local top for a few months. But then eventually we'll start working our way back up once again. And I do think we're in that moment right now. As you can see, we were struggling to break out of the resistance level that happened here last week. Then at the end of the week, we were able to pop our way out of it. Now kind of working and back testing price action. It's just to be expected. We're probably going to have accumulation phases. We're going to have stall out periods that happen along the way up in here. But otherwise, we very well could already be in an exciting time in the market, and a lot of people don't realize it. Judging by how this did behave in the past and just like back-tested support levels that happened in here, you can just see, right, there's capitulation, the first initial bounce off the lows, then it breaks out, and then it does go back and sorts of back test that level. That level for Bitcoin currently, it's all the way down here at 28,400. My thoughts are not that we have to go all the way back down there and test it. Probably need to leave the door open to say, well, if it does happen, it would make sense, as that's really the last level we have in here to go test from recent times. We're obviously back testing this whole area, which was once a green box resistance, right? On top of it as support after stalling through it. If we get some type of intentional news that seems to keep showing up, That'd be the level I'd be paying attention to. Otherwise, just structurally of where we're at right now, thoughts are we're in some type of accumulation period here that maybe another week or two, or we're just kind of in that initial just kind of grind until a bigger break eventually comes. If I had to make my best guess, sounds like moon boyish hype, which you guys should know I'm not. I was one of the very few where this was my thesis from April through June. It was rough making YouTube videos on it every day saying, hey, still lower to go. So I don't bring this to you with moon boy hype, but saying that, if I had to make my best guess, it is that we're just in one of these little kind of stall outs right in here before we keep working our way up. I've got to leave the idea open that we have this level that was the recent breakout that hasn't been back tested, and we did back test it, throughout here. That this did get tested. But if this thing is as strong as it appears, then, I'm not leaving my expectations open that it has to. The expectations for the correction were met to work its way down. Otherwise, I think we're already in kind of like the exciting time for Bitcoin. So we'll keep our eyes on it throughout the week. Either way, expectations are it would be totally normal to totally stall out for really the whole week. Things I wouldn't want to see would just be trips way back down in here, back down to like 27,000. That would get me concerned, yet 28,400 would not. But the way the chart appears, it appears that we're just going to range in here for some time and then continue the journey up. And well, that wasn't a too shabby of a close for the weekly candle this weekend, shooting back above that 200-week moving average. And with our monthly candle, we're sitting right there, popping right off of the 50-month moving average, which is what we stalled out underneath there in January and February, broke through in March, back testing here in May and June, and now bouncing right off. Still 4 or 5 more days left in June, but looking good so far. Moving on over to the altcoin market. As we've discussed for the last couple of weeks, we have the same correction structure happening in here as we did back in 2016 for the altcoin market, which took place right back over here in Markets in the Morning when we were talking about it, because we don't have the chart shown here on TradingView. We have to see it over here on CoinTrader Pro, where the peak of the 2013 bull market took place, and then years of bear followed by a testing on top of the support of 2013, as we've been doing over here for the altcoin market, that the correction that we had and the Wyckoff accumulation we had right there back on top of that 2013 height has been the same style correction that we've seen for the altcoin market in total here for 2022. And then the obvious continued Wyckoff accumulation taking place here in 2023. So still waiting for that to get going. We covered this last week. I've covered this in Markets in the Morning, but that the corrections were even the same in here before the market had to go into Wyckoff accumulation, and then eventually off and away we went. So still just kind of a waiting game here on the altcoin market to exhibit some signs of movement. We've obviously been watching this, the same Wyckoff accumulation structure emerging in a lot of these different altcoins, all with different types of creek and spring phases happening in here. So we've been monitoring this very closely. Obviously, you know it for this creek and spring down in here on a lot of these coins, and some of them taking out these lows, some of them not. For example, Atom has not taken out one of the lows. This was one of the ones deemed a security in the lawsuit against Binance and Coinbase 2 weeks ago. So Atom being one of the ones holding the low. Whereas in our spring phase, we know we can take out the bottom of that trading range. And that's what we've seen over here on things like Chainlink and various other altcoins as well. So it's this big moment. Can these things get that big sign of strength to work back up to the top of the trading range and then get a blast out of there? And fortunately, we have at least seen that emerge somewhere in the crypto market, which has been Bitcoin Cash, with just a monster move in the last week of over 100%, really working out a beautiful Wyckoff accumulation. You have to think to yourself, right, this is the same structures we're seeing all throughout the market. You see the selling climax happening in here. See the secondary test in phase B, slightly lower. Then what do we have? Creek and then break for spring. Notice this spring doesn't come lower. So that's one thing we talk about with Wyckoff accumulation. You have that kind of last point of support phase where it can kind of hold it. And then that creek phase, it can take out the low. It can not take out the low. Most of the time when I see these, we don't take out these lows like this, but sometimes we do. And even in the definition of the accumulation schematic with this spring phase, it says we take out the bottom of the trading range. But a lot of times I I do see it that we just don't. So we do have a sign of something doing exactly what Wyckoff sign of strength should do after the trading range is completed. You can even see in here, though, it shows after sign of strength, when we come in for last point of support, we do pull back down in here, right? So I would have that expectation that that would seem likely that it does pull back down into here before it can then work its way up again. But for me, who cares about that? It's the fact that we got exactly what we're looking to see emerge in this market. These types of behaviors to emerge in this market, and that we're not just visually seeing Wyckoff accumulation and Wyckoff spring happening in the market, but that there's signs and evidence of it emerging. And this is unquestionably, to me, a perfect sign of it. We see that sign of strength happening at the top of the range, and then finally, bam, shoots right on through it. So this is an optimistic sign for the rest of the market to me. Moving on to talk about XRP. Now, we've been paying attention to this, the accumulation schematic and correction that XRP has done over the course of the last 2 years in relation to what it did in 2015, 16, and 17. One thing we talked about last week was that, hey, time was getting really close to the end. Here we are, we're at that point. And then fortunately, somebody in the live stream, Markets in the Morning, pointed out there's a problem here with the Bitstamp chart. And it actually stems back to here in 2015 and 16 and 17, that if we zoom in on this time period right here, there are some dates that are actually missing in here. If we look right here on the bottom side of the screen, we'll notice we're in November, we're in December, we're in January. But wait a minute, January, we go from December 22nd right here to suddenly being January 3rd, to suddenly being January 9th, to then being January 17th. So starting right here, December 16th, we go to the 19th, to the 22nd, to the 3rd of January, to the 9th of January, to the 17th of January. These 6 candles, these 6 daily candles should only be 6 days, but it's actually 32 days. So something is wrong with the Bitstamp chart in regards to these dates missing. Which, if we head over here to CoinTrader Pro, we can see that is true, because this is pulling the data over here from CoinMarketCap, and that we actually have not reached the total amount of time, unlike previously thought. Not that time truly matters, because time is nearly impossible to predict, but it was an observation that we had made that time had finally caught up. But it turns out Bitstamp's chart is missing like a month of data hidden in there from December of 2016 to January of 2017. But we can see the correct data over here on CoinTrader Pro. So as for time, not quite there yet, at least in regards to what we did from 2015 to 2017. As for accumulation schematics and structures, though, still just waddling along in here for XRP. Everybody kind of on the edge of their seat waiting for the ruling in the SEC versus Ripple case to come out. And does XRP get the clarity it deserves? Now, what is interesting about XRP's current price behavior is the things we've talked about for the last couple of months. What do we have back here? We have the FTX collapse, right? Waddle underneath there, accumulation schematics under there. You break out, you find support on top of the 200-day moving average, get back up into retracements. It tries to break out with the Hinman emails getting released, failure. Still, accumulation just continues to go on. But the phase that we've been in, that we've talked about a lot, has been on top of this 200-day moving average after like a capitulative event, after a catalyst event happening in the market. That is also what we did back in 2020. We've brought this up a few times, holding on top of that 200-day support, finding that support level back in the same area as it did for 2020, coming off of huge catalyst events happening. But what's real interesting about this whole time period for XRP in here is the time period for here. And it all goes back to this whole discussion on where Bitcoin is. Like we talked about, this was C19 back in 2020 for Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin working its way back up to eventually have an ABC correction. This has been the same amount of time as that exact moment. But what's special about this moment? What is special about Bitcoin from back in August and September and October of 2020 is that for XRP, this is August, September, and October. And then it's November that it breaks out. I can even copy it and paste it and put it right here to show that this is what time that was and how much time elapsed during that moment. But the copying and pasting of those fractals isn't what we're here. We've talked about this. The interesting thing is, where was Bitcoin during that time? What was Bitcoin doing? And that we keep pointing to this time for Bitcoin happening in here right now, which, if we lay them on top of each other, would be somewhere in this region right in here for Bitcoin. And so I get it all the time. I've had this question for years. Whenever Bitcoin's moving up and XRP is sideways, there is just some group of people who are always just like, why are we not moving with Bitcoin? Why are we not moving with Ethereum for XRP? And the historical charts just show it all the time that it doesn't. And a lot of times it'll be late. It'll eventually catch up. XRP will eventually catch up, but that it's late. And so you can kind of see when this happened for Bitcoin back in 2020, what was going on with XRP. As is typical, sad. And you may have heard it on this channel before. If you weren't here at that time, we often refer to this as the 22.5 cent time period. That was brutal, because this is Bitcoin moving from, $11,000, $12,000 right back to the all-time high. It gets up to $19,000. XRP doesn't break from the 702 retracement until Bitcoin's already at 18,800. So when you hear people reflect back on the pain of 22.5 cents, it's not just because there was a bunch of hype, a bunch of momentum when we pulled out of here. It was just like we've been now. When I was in that time period of 22.5 cents, I was like, I think we're going lower. I think we're going lower. We got to get to that 22.5 cents. We got there, and then we just stayed there. It was brutal. We just wouldn't get out until finally we did. We blasted out of there. And then Bitcoin goes for the breakout of the all-time high. And then who knocks on the door of XRP would be the SEC. So fingers crossed we don't have that happen again, and that the ruling goes positively. But for XRP, this is a positive sign for Bitcoin to be doing this. It's not unusual for XRP to continue waddling. Thing that would be optimistic is, let's see Bitcoin keep on going, and then we can keep sitting there biting our fingernails waiting for that moment for XRP to get its rampage started. One of the things we were looking for in regards to like a Wyckoff spring coming for XRP would be that we would kind of continue down in here and get that real break for that spring, right? But instead, XRP bounces off of the 200-day moving average. It's a great sign. It's an optimistic sign for XRP, as we saw in 2020. But the question has been remaining, are we going to get that kind of spring? And it just seems unlikely that there's some crazy spring to happen, because from a time perspective, we were just kind of looking for it to have already occurred. I get it. There's a little bit of a flaw here on the Bitstamp chart. But while XRP caught a bounce, that spring showed up in the rest of the market. It's like XRP got itself a little bit of strength to get away from there, to where when that moment hit the market, we just weren't sitting that low. We see it here on Bitcoin Cash, right? We see it everywhere. We see it in the altcoin market cap. You see it here on things like SHIB, which is the same thing, right? So I'm definitely more skeptical of something like that emerging, just because it happened in the market. It really happened when it was supposed to throughout the whole market. But XRP gave itself a little bit of strength to get away from that before it struck. So I think it's just a patience game on XRP right now. And that's really kind of just looking over here at Bitcoin, or waiting for the SEC case to do some type of catalyst surprise. I think XRP is building strength. I think it's looking for that catalyst to send it, whether that's Bitcoin or whether that's the SEC case. It seems we're in that phase of preparing for a lift up. But the market's just looking for a reason to get it. But otherwise, it's really just been a duplicate play of 2020, mixed with being the same phase from 2015 through 2017. So, like I've said, I'm optimistic on XRP throughout 2023. We're just waiting on our moment. And if it doesn't come from the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, well, I think the market's getting itself primed up anyway. So just being patient over here, but man, it's looking good out there. But all right, I hope that you guys enjoyed all of that and the perspective of the market. I know videos have been spotty over the course of the last couple of months. I've tried to kind of lay the clues that I've been working on stuff and I've been mentioning in Markets in the Morning. I've been building out the course. Kind of kept it quiet for the first month or two, but started spilling the beans over the course of the last month. And I'm just relieved, excited, exhausted, and overall just grateful and proud of what I've put together here on bcbacker.com. As many of you know, this website has been closed for any type of enrollment for over a year at this point, as a lot of the material from the first course was recorded in 2020. We already gone through an entire run up in Bitcoin. When that course was released, it was only 14 videos. It was about 4.5 hours long. It was very kind of specific to a moment in time. And for the last several months, I have just been working like a madman to build a comprehensive new course with all fresh material that encapsulates the things that you guys have wanted to learn about and the things we talk about on the YouTube channel. Everything you saw me do in today's video, I teach you how to do in this course. And not only are there videos explaining those topics in this course, but there's PDF files that have been made to supplement that so you can have something to print out. And then there's even links to additional websites if you want to extend your knowledge beyond what I even talk about in the videos. And so if you head down to the bottom on bcbacker.com, you will see everything listed in here. If you get down here, it's probably going to look like this. It's going to have it kind of hidden in here for all of them. Hit that little arrow, and then you can see everything that's listed in here, from the intros to walking you through TradingView, walking you through CoinTrader Pro. We talk about candlesticks, what they mean. We talk about log scale versus linear scale. Then a super deep dive into a lot of the indicators that you see me use on the YouTube channel, elaborating on them, the risks to rewards of them, and trying to give you a complete comprehensive understanding. I do understand technical analysis can be over our heads a lot of time. It seems daunting. But I've tried to make this course exactly like my YouTube channel, where I try to explain it in an easy to understand way. I always keep that in mind, even when I'm making YouTube videos, that I'm like trying to speak to everybody. And I want most people to be able to follow me along and not feel like I'm talking over people, but that we're like engaging in a dialect and you can understand exactly where I'm coming from. And so teaching you the charts, teaching you the indicators, and then talking about a lot of the popular chart patterns, and then diving deep into the BCB crashing structure, which of course is my favorite one. Then the two highly desired topics that people have requested numerous times for me to cover, the big ones, the Wyckoff method of Wyckoff distribution and Wyckoff accumulation. And of course, the big boy of them all, Elliott wave theory. And of course, all these videos are freshly recorded in 2023, and even freshly recorded videos for the historical behavior of the cryptocurrency market in regards to understanding Bitcoin bull runs, altcoin seasons, lessons learned from 2017 and 2021, the Bitcoin and altcoin dominance swings, and the changes that have happened in the market. And of course, the big debate, Bitcoin versus the stock market versus the halving. But also additional information to help like in research, when it comes to like developer data, when it comes to tokenomics, inflation, why percentages matter, price doesn't, crowd behavior, meme coin mania. And while the thing that we all have to keep in check, doesn't matter who you are, you're the toughest dude on the block or the powerhouse lady boss. Markets are volatile. They trigger lots of emotions. And sometimes it's the ones we don't expect, whether it's the extreme excitement and the euphoria and the chasing of FOMO, or the absolute panic, fear, and depression. And then sometimes the ones we don't even think about, the ones that are like jealousy and how those can cause us distress, and just talking about emotional management. So when you go to any of these, it's going to have the video in there. It's going to have a PDF in there. It's going to have a download link for the PDF in there if you want to print it out. And then it'll have links to additional learning material if you want to expand your knowledge beyond whatever we've talked about in the PDF or we've talked about in the video. Then at the bottom, the course guide and extra resources, there's a master file in here that contains all the PDFs that are in the whole thing. So if you want to just print out the whole thing in one, that's located down here at the bottom in course guide and extra resources. So this has been what I have been working on for the last several months. And I've definitely seen your messages out there. BCB, man, I miss the videos. Markets in the morning, it's cool and all. It's not really for me. I don't have an hour or 2 hours to be able to watch that. I got 15 minutes for a video. Even when you put out a 30-minute video, I've got to play it on 2x because I've only got 15 minutes for the day. And I totally get it. I've busted my behind on this thing for months. And I just wanted to show you at least this is why there's been the lack of videos. Normally, in a normal month, right prior to even doing markets in the morning, I was doing on average 20 videos per month. And that was it. There was really no live streams, nothing extra 20 videos per month, Monday through Friday. That was it. 1 video per day. That's what we got. And for the last couple of months, the average has been 10 videos per month, right? 10 videos per month, 20 live streams. I'm sure some people will be like, oh my gosh, we're never going to have the videos back. And I just want to show you, I've been doing videos. I've been doing lots of videos. It's over 40 of them. It just became a time management issue. This project was monstrous to put together. I tried to lay out all the things that I find useful and take into consideration the things that you guys have wanted to learn about and put it all in here. And it just took a lot of time. And I get it. This isn't for everybody. And you know what? No worries. The good news is this project is done now. So for those who have been really wanting videos to get back on the channel and get going, the good news is they're back. This has been so time consuming and it's officially done and it's released. It's out there in the world. And so if you're interested in getting it, if you're interested in 11 hours of content to over 40 videos, again, tried to price it in a price range where most people could get that at $39. There's no subscription fees, no reoccurring payments, just as it was in 2020. I'm thrilled to put it out there. I tried to massively one-up most things I see out there, and of course, one-up myself. 40 videos, 40 plus videos, 11 plus hours, PDFs for download, and links to additional resources. So I hope that you check it out and enroll in it today. Either way, YouTube videos are back, and I'm thrilled. So I want to thank you guys for supporting my channel. I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you check out bcbacker.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching. But all right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.